So as you lot all know by now, it looks like Joe Parker versus Joyce is going to be on. We thought we would see this fight sooner, though there were some issues, but it seems like it's resolved and the fight will take place. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen their press conference by now, but it was very interesting. The likes of Frank Warren getting involved, a very animated Joyce and Joseph Parker. We don't usually see these two fighters get, very animated. Although Joyce, his personality has changed, it has shifted. He used to be a lot more nicer. I don't know if it's that GB type of mentality, that jolly good show type stuff that they often do in British boxing. It's a lot more respectful and there's not as much trash talk when you compare British fighters to American fighters. At least in my opinion, I feel like American fighters generally talk a little bit more trash than British fighters, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's entertaining. But yeah, Joyce has seemed a little bit more animated in the past couple of months. Calling out Anthony Joshua, having a verbal exchange. It seems like he's trying to demand respect from all these other heavyweights. And it seems like he is genuinely pushing for a title and he wants a title shot very, very soon. And he might get it if he's able to defeat Joseph Parker. And in Joseph Parker's case, it was also interesting to see him animated because this is someone who you don't often see animated. Joseph Parker is a very respectful guy. I mean, the guy doesn't get into much verbal exchanges with fighters at conferences and so on and so forth. So to see him, get in it with Frank Warren, get in it with Joyce, it was very interesting. There was a lot of debate about who was the A side, who was the B side. Frank Warren and Joyce were trying to say, well, I'm ranked number 1, you're ranked number 2, so obviously I'm the A side. But then I felt like Joseph Parker hit them with a great rebuttal where he mentioned that, well, I've been world champion. Have you been a world champion? He was mentioning essentially fighting at the world level because if we're being honest, Joyce's best win was against Dylan White. Not Dylan White, oh my god, I can't believe I just said that. His best win was against Daniel Dubois. How embarrassing, 1-0 for me there. And Joe Parker's, he's been in the ring with Dylan White. He's beat Derek Chisora twice. He didn't beat Anthony Joshua, but he was in a relatively competitive fight against Anthony Joshua. He's fought, was it Hiri Fury? He's fought guys like Andy Ruiz, Junior Fa. So he's fought a lot of top heavyweights, ranked heavyweights, in comparison to Joyce, who's really fought and beat Carlos Takam and Daniel Dubois. So if we're looking at their resumes, objectively and honestly, we have to say that Joseph Parker has the better resume. Even though he didn't win all of the fights, he was competitive in pretty much every fight that I mentioned. So, who do you guys think should be the A side in this fight? Should it be Joyce or Joseph Parker? It's a great news for boxing, and it's good for BT Sports to be hosting these quality fights. BT Sports and Frank Warren have done quite well in my opinion in 2022. I do think they've outdone, Eddie Hearn in DAZN. They've outdone Sky Sports. And to me, they're putting on, really impressive fights, quality fights, competitive fights, which is what we all want to see. For me, these are two guys in their prime, or at least some people might argue that Joseph Parker is past his best, but, it's not like he's been knocked out badly and his punch resistance is gone and he looks very out of shape and his athleticism has declined tremendously. If he isn't in his prime, he is probably close to his prime based off his last performance. So it's going to be a great fight. Now, even though I said that Joseph Parker was the A side, he has the better resume, doesn't mean I actually think he's the better fighter. I think that as of right now, I would actually favor Joyce. And the reason I favor Joyce over Parker is because Joyce has a very, very good jab, and it's going to be difficult for Parker to get on the inside. Now, Parker isn't the most devastating puncher. He doesn't have the most concussive punches. However, he is very, very explosive. In terms of his hand speed, he's one of the faster guys in the heavyweight division. You know, he's probably inferior to the likes of Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz in terms of hand speed, but obviously Parker is a lot more precise and crisp on the inside in comparison to a Wilder. Wilder's got good speed from long range, and Ruiz has got good speed mid-range to close range, where Parker has got good speed on the outside, and he's also got pretty good hand speed on the inside. That's why Anthony Joshua didn't want to exchange with Joseph Parker, in my opinion, because he realized that this guy, he is very fast, and one of those punches you probably won't see coming. They'll come from an awkward angle, and it only takes one punch, especially in the heavyweight division, to really hurt your opponent. But, generally, I just feel like for Joe Parker, he hasn't shown that he is the most willing to take risk. And obviously, it's a lot easier said than done. You don't want to just go in there like a headless chicken. You want to be a lot more calculated. If you get greedy in boxing, it can be to your detriment. Look at Rolly Romero in his fight against Gervonta Tank Davis. In my opinion, Romero in that fight was doing, quite well. It was relatively competitive, but Rolly Romero was able to use his dirty tactics and keep Tank off him relatively well and keep the fight at a relatively low volume of punches. However, he got greedy and he got caught coming in. Joseph Parker is someone who doesn't strike you as someone who's going to get greedy. But sometimes you must be willing to take risk. And it's probably a similar situation to Joshua Usyk 1, where, people were saying Joshua probably needs to take a little bit more risk. He probably needs to be more aggressive and stop trying to outbox Usyk. But Joshua obviously didn't do that, and it was to his downfall in that fight. That's also been a similar thing with Joseph Parker. People have often been frustrated and said, well, this guy has tremendous ability. He's got good qualities, but he doesn't take risks, and often at times he's not aggressive enough and determined enough to win. But it will be interesting to see how they match up against each other, because although Joyce has a fantastic jab, I would say Joe Parker is probably slightly more fluid than Daniel Dubois in terms of the upper body movement, because Daniel Dubois' upper body is relatively stiff in my opinion. He reminds me a lot of Frank Bruno in terms of his posture and how upright he is. Joseph Parker, he's not super fluid in the upper body, but he's much more fluid than Daniel Dubois, and he is very fast. He's not someone who's looking to load up on punches and telegraph punches. He's someone who's looking for quick punches and then get out of the pocket. So I don't think Joyce has fought anyone near the level of speed in particular of Joe Parker. So it'll be interesting to see how Joyce and his very methodical style, very slow style. Joyce is very unorthodox in terms of how slow he is. But it'll be interesting to see how someone that slow is able to deal with Joe Parker's hand speed, because it can be quite good when he finds his rhythm. Alright guys, just a quick little video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Who do you guys think is the favorite? As of right now, I'd give the edge to Joyce. However, Joe Parker does have some qualities that he could implement to offset and disrupt Joyce's rhythm and his movement and his jab. Alright guys, peace.